Welcome, everyone, to this deep dive.
Yeah.
We're going to get into a pretty amazing story today
Yeah.
about Father Damien,
Definitely a compelling figure.
and we have some excerpts from a document about him.
Uh-huh.
And I think, as we dig into it, you're going to see why.
Oh, absolutely.
This is such an incredible story.
His life, it really was a testament to his faith.
Right.
Just a living example of what it means to live out the teachings of Christ.
Yeah.
Compassion and self-sacrifice. But he didn't just talk about these things,
Right.
He lived them out in a very real way.
Yeah.
And he did it, serving some of the most marginalized people in society.
And feared.
The lepers of Molokai.
Yeah, it's just incredible to think about, the courage that must have taken to even go to Molokai.
Yeah.
Can you tell us a little bit about his background? Where did he come from? What led him to make such a decision?
So he started life as Joseph de Veuster in Belgium.
Okay.
And he was deeply religious, even as a young man. And eventually, joined the Congregation of the Sacred Hearts of Jesus and Mary.
Okay.
And he took the name Damien when he entered the order.
Okay.
And when a call went out for volunteers to go and serve the lepers on Molokai, he didn't even hesitate.
Wow.
He stepped right up.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
And, back then, leprosy wasn't just like a physical ailment. It was so much fear and misunderstanding surrounding it.
Yeah, it carried, just a massive social stigma.
Right.
People who had leprosy were just completely ostracized,
Yeah.
seen as outcasts.
Right.
Their suffering was just, compounded by the fact that they were
Totally
isolated, rejected.
Yeah.
And Molokai, the island where they set these lepers, became kind of a symbol of both physical and spiritual
Exile.
That's a good word for it. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm so curious about, what were the conditions like when he got there?
Yeah.
I mean, what did he step into?
Well, his letters describe a scene of just utter despair.
Wow.
The physical suffering, of course, was just everywhere. You couldn't avoid it. But it was really the sense of hopelessness that struck him. These people were living in just squalor, deprived of
basic necessities.
Human dignity.
It's just, as you're describing this, it's hard not to be moved by just the magnitude of the challenge.
Yeah.
So how did he even begin to make a difference in the face of all that?
Well, he didn't just offer temporary relief or a little bit of charity here and there.
Right.
He really set about transforming the whole fabric of life on Molokai.
Okay.
He understood that to really care for these people meant, addressing both their physical and their spiritual needs.
And what did that look like practically? And what were some of the specific actions he took to improve the lives of the people there?
Well, he got to work, quite literally.
Okay.
He started organizing the construction of new homes, replacing these dilapidated shacks with something more dignified.
Yeah.
He established a school for the children, realizing that education
that's great.
was key, to breaking that cycle of despair and poverty.
So he brought a sense of order and purpose, I guess, to a place that had really just known chaos.
Absolutely.
Wow.
Yeah, he introduced a whole new code of conduct for the settlement.
Oh, wow.
Encouraging cooperation.
Oh, that's great.
And mutual support among the residents.
Yeah.
He even established a regular schedule of events.
Okay.
Bringing a kind of normalcy and routine to their lives.
It sounds like he wasn't afraid to, really get his hands dirty to create a more humane.
Not at all. He saw the inherent dignity in every single person on Molokai, regardless of, what their physical condition was.
Right.
And that, that really fueled his tireless efforts to improve their lives.
Yeah. But it wasn't just about the physical aspects of their lives, was it?
No.
I mean, he was a priest.
Yeah.
He was deeply devoted to his faith.
Absolutely. He believed that, attending to their spiritual needs was just as important as, caring for their bodies.
Right.
So he built chapels. He organized prayer services.
Okay.
He administered the sacraments.
Yeah.
He brought the comfort and hope of his Catholic faith
Right.
to this community that had been, largely forgotten.
So it wasn't just building homes and schools. He was really building a church.
Yeah.
In a sense.
You could say that, yeah.
Yeah.
He was creating a space where, their spirits could be nourished even as their bodies suffered.
And his own life, became a powerful example of that. Because he didn't just, visit Molokai or keep a safe distance. He chose to live among the lepers.
He did.
Sharing their lives, facing the same risks.
He wasn't content to just be an outsider, looking in. He felt, a deep calling to share in their suffering, to show them that they weren't alone, that even in their isolation, God was with them.
That must have had such a profound impact on the people there. To see this priest, this outsider willingly embrace their world.
I did.
Their pain, their reality. I mean,
it did.
It's just an incredible testament.
It really was.
To his faith and his love for them.
His presence wasn't just symbolic.
Right.
It was transformative.
Yeah.
He brought this sense of hope and dignity to a community that had been, stripped of both.
Right.
He reminded them that even in their suffering, they weren't forgotten.
Right.
That they were still worthy of love and respect.
But this level of dedication, like choosing to live among those afflicted with leprosy, I mean, it must have come with incredible risks.
It did. And tragically, that risk became a reality.
Yeah.
Father Damien himself contracted leprosy.
Wow.
The very disease, that he had dedicated his life to fighting.
It's such a heartbreaking turn of events.
Yeah.
I mean, to face the same affliction. That he'd spent years battling alongside these people. It's almost like the ultimate test of his faith.
It really is. And, it's in this final chapter of his life that we really see the true depths of his commitment.
Yeah. Even after his diagnosis, Father Damien's spirit just didn't waver.
Oh, wow.
He just kept going. He kept working. He found a lot of solace in his faith, of course.
Right.
And drew strength, from that community that he had helped to build.
It's just so inspiring to think about that, that resilience in the face of such adversity. Did he ever express, any fear or regret about his fate?
It's interesting. His letters from this period actually reveal a remarkable acceptance of his condition. He saw his own suffering, as a way to further identify with the lepers, to kind of share in their experience even more fully.
It's almost like his illness, deepened his connection to the people he was serving.
That he could understand their pain on an even deeper level.
Yeah, I think you could say that, his leprosy became a bridge rather than a barrier between him and the lepers.
Yeah.
He wrote about experiencing, a new level of empathy and compassion.
Wow.
A deeper understanding, of the spiritual and emotional toll that the disease took on its victims.
It's just a powerful reminder, isn't it, that suffering, as difficult as it is, can also be a source of growth and deeper understanding.
Absolutely. And in Father Damien's case, it really just intensified his dedication to his ministry. He kept preaching, he kept offering comfort. He kept advocating for the needs of the lepers, even as his own health was declining.
Did his work change in any way after the diagnosis?
Well, he had to scale back some of the physical activities, of course.
Right.
But he remained very much, involved in the spiritual life of the colony.
All right.
And he continued to celebrate Mass, hear confessions, offer counsel to those who, sought him out.
It's just remarkable that even in his own suffering, he never lost sight of the needs of others.
Yeah.
It speaks volumes, about his character and his commitment.
His actions during this time, I think, are a real testament to his unwavering belief that, every human life, regardless of its physical state, holds inherent value and deserves to be treated with dignity and respect.
His story really challenges us, to confront our own attitudes towards suffering and those who are afflicted by illness.
It does. It forces us to ask, how do we respond to the suffering of others?
Right.
Do we turn away, in fear or discomfort, or do we, like Father Damien, embrace them with compassion and try to alleviate their pain, both physical and spiritual?
It's a profound question, and one that I think has implications for all of us, not just those, in religious life.
Exactly. Father Damien's example transcends religious boundaries. It speaks to, I think, the very core of what it means to be human, to recognize our shared vulnerability and to, extend compassion.
Those in need?
To those in need.
His dedication to the lepers of Molokai ultimately, he gained him recognition far beyond, the shores of that small island. News of his work and his sacrifice. I mean, it spread throughout the world.
It did.
People were just captivated by his story, inspired by his selflessness, moved by his faith,
really.
in the face of such adversity.
It's a powerful story.
And this recognition ultimately led to his beatification and canonization by the Catholic Church.
It did.
What do you think is the most enduring aspect of his legacy? What can we learn, from his life and apply to our own lives, even if we're not facing the same challenges he did?
Well, I think Father Damien's life really offers a powerful reminder that true faith, it's not passive.
Right.
It's about action. It's about love in action.
Yeah.
He didn't just talk about compassion. He lived it.
Yeah.
He challenged us to see Christ in the most unlikely of places, in the suffering, in the marginalized.
And he showed us that service to others, even in the face of great personal risk, can be a path to profound spiritual fulfillment.
Absolutely. Father Damien reminds us that, true happiness lies not in pursuing, our own comfort and our own security, but in dedicating ourselves to something larger than ourselves, in loving and serving others, especially those who are most in need.
His example is both inspiring and challenging, isn't it?
Yeah.
I mean, he sets a high bar for how we should live our lives.
He does.
How we should treat each other. How we should respond to suffering.
It's a bar worth striving for, even if we don't always reach it.
Yeah.
Father Damien's life reminds us that even small acts of kindness and compassion can make a difference in the world.
And I think that's a beautiful message to carry with us as we kind of, delve deeper into this story. It's easy to think about, saints as these like larger than life figures, almost untouchable in their holiness. But Father Damien's story, it really reminds us that sainthood isn't about perfection. It's about embracing the messiness of life and responding with love. Even when it's hard, even when it's scary.
He wasn't afraid, to get his hands dirty, both figuratively and literally. He saw the humanity, in those that society had just cast aside. And he served them, with humility and just unwavering dedication.
And that's a powerful lesson for all of us, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's a call to look beyond the surface, to see the face of Christ in everyone we encounter.
Absolutely.
Especially those who are suffering or marginalized.
It's a challenge to our own comfort zones, to our own prejudices and fears.
Right.
Father Damien's life asks us, are we willing to step outside of ourselves, to reach out to those who are different, to offer compassion and care, even when it's difficult?
And that is such a relevant question for us today.
Yeah.
In a world that often feels so divided and polarized.
Absolutely. We live in a time where, fear and judgment often overshadow compassion and understanding.
It's true.
Father Damien's story reminds us that we are all connected.
Yeah.
We're all part of the human family.
Right.
And we have a responsibility
to care for one another. His life is a testament to the power of one person to make a difference. He didn't have any special powers or resources.
He didn't.
He just had a deep faith,
a
compassionate heart, and a willingness to serve.
And in that simplicity, in that, ordinary everyday commitment to love and service, he achieved something extraordinary. He did. He transformed a community, he inspired a world, and he left behind a legacy that continues to challenge and inspire us.
So as we wrap up, our deep dive into the life of Father Damien, I want to leave you with this. What is your Molokai? Where is the place or who are the people in your own life that need your compassion, your service, your love? It doesn't have to be something, grand or heroic. It can be something as simple as a kind word, a helping hand, a listening ear.
Father Damien showed us that true holiness is found not in extraordinary feats, but in those ordinary acts of love and kindness that we extend to each other day in and day out.
So go out and find your Molokai. Embrace the opportunity to make a difference in the world, even in small ways. And let the spirit of Father Damien guide your steps.